We will now call to order the meeting of the Waco City Council on February 16th, 2021 to order at 3:08 p.m. Joining with me online today are Mayor Pro Tem Hector Sabito, Councilmember Andrea Bearfield, Councilmember Josh Waterroot, and Councilmember Kelly Palmer, and Councilmember Jim Holmes. Also joining today online are Bradley Ford, our City Manager, Jennifer Ritchie, our City Attorney, and Esmeralda Hudson, our City Secretary. Please join me now for a moment of silence. Thank you. On March 16th, 2020, the governor suspended various provisions of the Open Meetings Act pursuant to his state of disaster authority. The change was effective March 16th, 2020 until further notice or until the state of disaster declaration expires. In accordance with physical distancing guidelines and while providing as much transparency as possible, this meeting will not be open to the public attending in person. This meeting is being broadcast live at wccc.tv. The audio is also being recorded. The video and audio recordings will be available to the public. According to the governor and attorney general, statutes that may require face-to-face interactions between members of the public and public officials are suspended, provided, however, that the governmental body offers alternative methods of communication with their public officials. This includes public comment on agenda items. In an effort to allow for as much public input as possible, those who wish to speak or submit written comments on a listed agenda item were asked to register with the City Secretary's office by 1 p.m. today. Individuals who register to speak on an agenda item must limit their comments to 3 minutes. On items other than public hearings, speakers will be allotted 1 3-minute presentation regardless of the number of agenda items the speaker wishes to address. I do want to say today that this meeting might look a little different. As everyone in our community knows, we've been experiencing unprecedented winter weather. And I want to say right now, a special thanks to our staff who have been working around the clock to meet a variety of community needs. Because this is not on our agenda to talk about in depth, we won't be speaking to all of the work that our council and staff have been doing to meet community needs, but those are available on our social media accounts of the city, the City of Waco's public information social media accounts, and our city council individual social media accounts that you can look to for some information coming out. We are meeting in offices in our city hall today because we have important city business to attend to, and several members of the city council don't have internet access because of different power outages or didn't have guaranteed internet access because of some power outages. So thank you to our city staff who worked to safely transport us to this meeting here in City Hall so we can log into computers where we know that we're going to have hopefully good internet access for this meeting. But again, we ask for your grace for the flow of this meeting, as so many of our key city staff members who are usually spending much time in preparation for this meeting have been really working hard on a variety of community needs in this moment. But felt like we needed to move forward for a couple of reasons and a couple of the items on the agenda tonight. We are going to make sure that if there's any matters that come up, and as we're discussing, we believe that because people won't be able to actively participate, we'll weigh that and if necessary, move to a future agenda. But want to get as much city business done today as we can to keep things moving forward here in the city. And with that, we will now recess the regular session and convene to work session with a report from the city manager, Bradley Ford.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. It's going to be a fun day. I do have a couple of changes this afternoon. We'll be postponing 2 work session items, work session 2021-092, which is a discussion of short-term rentals, and work session 2021-093, which is a presentation of our annual audit. Those will be moved to a future meeting, most likely March 2nd. The only thing I'll add to the mayor's comment about our meeting today is we are here at City Hall, as you referenced, in various offices. In the event we do experience a power outage, we will move to generator power, which could lead to about a 5-minute break in our meeting as we reboot and recycle and come back online. So just something to be aware of if the screen goes dark. I wanted to start today's meeting with an employee recognition and organizational update. Mayor and Council, as you're well aware, this winter weather event has brought some unprecedented challenges to our city and the state of Texas. We do, in addition to the resources the mayor mentioned in the introduction, we do have a winter weather page now active on wacotexas.com, which highlights our city closures, as well as resources for residents seeking warming center locations and helpful phone numbers and websites to report utility outages and similar things. On Sunday, I did implement our inclement weather policy and instructed our non-essential personnel not to report to work Monday and Tuesday of this week, and we're extending that closure through at least tomorrow, and we'll monitor the weather for the remainder of the week. So many of our employees are just doing outstanding work, and I do look forward as the weeks go on to bringing you a more detailed report of that work. But right now, I'd like to just say a huge thanks to our employees who literally are working around the clock to keep our equipment functioning and our critical infrastructure as operational as possible, so that we can keep our residents as safe as possible. I can't really overstate how proud I am of the hearts of service that our team has. And I look forward to sharing more details behind that in the coming days. Typically at this point in the meeting, I'd turn it over to Larry Halsey to provide the Halsey report, but we're actually not going to have that out of respect to our closures, as well as frankly complications due to the weather. So we'll be back with that in March as well. On your agenda today, we do have 3 informal reports. The first is an update on COVID-19. The second is an informal report regarding our police department's 2020 racial profiling report. And the third is an update on the implementation of revised floodplains in the city. At this point, I'll take any questions on those informal reports.
Mayor Ford, no questions on my end, but I do want to comment on a few, on a couple of these informal reports. Informal report 88 to talk about the vaccine update, COVID-19 update. As if it wasn't enough to deal with the pandemic of COVID-19. And then we get this gracious blessing of snow and ice towards the latter part of last week, and the beginning of this week. But in spite of that, you know, our health district has still been very committed Thursday, Friday, and Saturday to get vaccines done. And so I just want to commend the health district for, in spite of shutting down early Thursday, in spite of opening late Friday, in spite of shutting down Saturday because of the weather, they still took people that were going to miss appointments and still got their second vaccine or their first vaccine in. And so I just really want to commend and congratulate the health district on the job well done. And not only that, but I've heard numerous reports through community members that received the vaccine through our health district, how helpful, how cordial, how easygoing the whole process has been. And so this just goes to show the great leadership that we have with Deputy City Manager Emerson and all the way from the top down on down. And so I just really want to give kudos. I mean, I think even one day when the health district only worked half a day or maybe a little bit over, they were still able to administer over 700 vaccines. And so, you know, this is just thankful, great gratitude towards all of our community partners, all of our nurses, frontline workers, our health district that's just making this happen. So kudos to them. I just really want to acknowledge them and really just highlight the great work that they're doing. The second comment is on Informal Report 89 when it comes from the formal report about the police department racial profiling report. It was great to see the report in detail as to far as how our arrests or even, you know, how our stops break down by ethnicity, to see that you really can't see any disparity among ethnicities or races that are stopped because they are people of color, et cetera, things like that. It was very for lack of better words, I mean, it was very even keel. And for the to know that officers didn't even have prior knowledge of what ethnicity the person was that they were stopping, that in 2020, the Waco Police Department didn't have any complaint on racial profiling. I think that just goes to say a lot about our department and the direction that we're moving in, and honestly, the great work that Waco PD is doing. And so also, once again, I just want to give kudos to all of our men and women in blue that are making our neighborhoods and our streets safe, but they're also doing it with every community member in mind, not just a certain one. And so I just really want to thank them for that.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for those kind comments.
This is Holmes. I'll weigh in a little bit too on the informal reports. The first one on COVID. It seems like we're kind of turning the corner, maybe seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. But I like how proactive that our public health district has been in figuring out, really diversifying our ability to get the vaccines distributed fairly. I know we tested the drive-through, and we had the center at the convention center there too. Just getting ready, because right now we're not getting a lot of vaccines, but when we do, and I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic that we get, a lot of them soon, we will be ready by, and I like the fact that we're testing these different ways and working out the kinks before the big vaccine numbers come in. So I appreciate the work that our teams are doing there. On the floodplain on 090 there, I appreciated the kind of the timeline on where we are, how we got here. I want to be thoughtful about how we communicate this, the FEMA issues and the firm issues, and how this floodplain, just the issue here, what impact it has, not only on homeowners, but on developers, on investors. And I want to make sure we're very transparent on that as we communicate that to the investment community and the homeowner community in those areas that are affected. I know it kind of, at one point, it kind of is what it is, but I want to be, let's communicate it well on the go forward. Because again, where we got to where we are here with the maps, but over the course of the next 3-6 months, what are we trying to communicate to the community? When will that be effective? When will this new map go into effect? Because it has a pretty, the ripple effect is pretty huge on homeowners that might not have a different insurance profile, on investors who already own land that may find it difficult to get leverage. We just need to be thoughtful about how we communicate that to the community. And I'm not expecting answers right now, but as we go forward, let's make sure we're very clear on what the next steps are and how that ends up.
Thank you for that comment, Councilmember Holmes. I do have Paul Kane, our Assistant City Manager, on the line if he'd like to provide any comments. Paul, anything in response there?
Thank you, Bradley. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble with my computer here. Councilmember Holmes, we will put together a detailed public notification plan once we get the information through FEMA, and we'll provide a schedule both to council as well as to the public of what the process is going to be once we get that nailed down.
Great, thanks, Paul.
So jumping in with comments on the informal reports. With the Informal Report 88 update on coronavirus, just want to make note that we recognize in looking at the racial demographics of who's received the vaccine, obviously we're seeing inequities still play out here, and it's noted that we began our first subcommittee of the equitable vaccine distribution last week. And so want folks to know that we have city staff members and elected officials from the city and from the county and nonprofit stakeholders throughout the community that are all coming to the table looking at how we can meet the needs of all of our underserved communities, whether it's community members that live in rural parts of our community, community members that don't speak English, community members that are undocumented, community members that are elderly, and recognizing that each of these subpopulations have various challenges to both accessing the information and getting to the vaccine. So I'm hopeful that we'll see these percentages go in a more equitable direction, but want to recognize that this is a reality of an imperfect reality, and these are very real challenges, and yet we're still taking very proactive steps to try to ameliorate these. All along the informal report lines for racial profiling, I think recognizing that the reason these laws are in place are because of brutality that we've seen against community members of color, and seeing the quote from Sandra Bland's mother in support and in recognition of the firm that we're going with was really encouraging for me to know that we are partnering with subject matter experts. We are really trying to pursue accountability and transparency. And like Mayor Pro Tem said, I think that speaks well of our police department and our leaders that are making really thoughtful decisions.
Thank you, Councilmember Palmer. On the
City Manager Ford, one second. Just in addition to the comments made by my colleagues, the last town halls that we had with Dr. Woods Campbell, and then the one that was moderated by Mayor Pro Tem Sabito, are those getting re-aired? And I ask that because as we are certainly working to address inequities in our vaccination, but I think some of the conversation still needs to be assurance in the vaccination, and assurance that to encourage our people who may have trust issues with the science, to hear those words again. Don't let that just be a one-time thing. So I don't know if they're being re-aired on our cable channel and or our social media platforms, but I think it's definitely helpful to re-air those things, because I know along with Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Sabito, Dr. Woods Campbell, her comments were directly, intended for the African-American community, and the hesitation that comes and trust issues that comes in the science of and all the politics that encapsulated the vaccine. So I think that we need to make sure that in addition to the things that we're doing in advancing equity of our vaccine, taking care of our people, ensuring that you all have done the lion's share of pivoting and making it easy and making it, a pathway for everybody who wants to get a vaccine that's eligible in 1A and B to get one. We've opened up doors about transparency throughout our entire system in our community that were closed. And we did that because that's our responsibility and that's our job. But I want to make sure that we're also, speaking to those who are not trying to get the vaccine. Their issue is that I'm not calling and I'm on the wait list, but it's just that I don't know about that vaccine. That's what I want to get to. And we need to make sure that those messages are reiterated and that we're offering some sense of assurance about the science behind the vaccine. So if that's not in repeat, can we get it there?
Thanks. Yes, absolutely. So two responses there. One, the town halls are available. They're uploaded to covidwaco.com. So you could watch it at any time if you're a member of the public hearing this question. And then secondly, Larry Halsey, our public information officer, has let me know that we will be including replays of those town halls based on your comments and questions, Councilwoman Bearfield. So appreciate that. Be watching for that in the coming days on our WCCC TV cable channel. All right, today, council members, we do have 8 public hearings on the agenda today. A little bit of a curveball due to power outages. Jennifer Ritchie, our city attorney, will be reviewing those in work session. And then on resolutions, we have 17 on the agenda today, and I'm just going to highlight one. And really, it's just because it's such a big one. And y'all know it's a big one because I'm going to take the chance to talk about other important work and activities on the agenda so that I can just focus in on one resolution. And that's Resolution 2021-105, which confirms the appointment of Dr. Cheryl Victorian as police chief for the city of Waco beginning March 15th, 2021. And in the moments like this, you know, it's sometimes easy to forget about the interim chief that's been serving because we have such a historic item to cover here. But I do want to personally thank Frank Ginch for serving as interim chief. It wasn't his first time to step into that role, and I'm just deeply appreciative of his contributions that he made in his time as interim chief. So Frank, I know you're watching and listening. Thank you very much. And thank you. You see the reactions from the council members as well. This hiring recommendation comes really at, you know, obviously a historic moment for Waco and the future of policing. And frankly, that combined with the unforeseen challenges of the early moments of COVID, that's the reason we stopped our process earlier in 2020 and started anew with a thoughtful and engaging police chief search process that really ensured robust community involvement. And I'm not exaggerating when I say it was the most significant and thorough process the city of Waco has ever undertaken of any position in the city. And that process really produced a phenomenal group of candidates. And I'm pleased today to introduce my recommendation to the public and to the council of Dr. Cheryl Victorian. Cheryl has a 28-year career at the Houston Police Department and currently serves as assistant chief. She really stood out among chief candidates for her depth of hands-on management experience, her educational background, and her support for innovative programs. To quote one of the many community panelists that helped us make this recommendation, Cheryl is smart, she's tough, sensitive, and collaborative. And all I'd add to that is that she has the heart of a servant. I have found from many of the messages I've received about Cheryl that she's very well thought of in the Houston region. I've heard directly from people in law enforcement as well as multiple other industries and professions who've directly reached out to me, unbeknownst to Cheryl, and stated that we are getting Houston's best here. All that really working to confirm what the Waco team saw in our weeks of dialogue with Cheryl. Obviously, Cheryl has joined the Zoom meeting, and if she's confirmed later this evening by the council, would be Waco's first female police chief and also our first African-American police chief. And those facts just make this, you know, a really historic moment and decision for the Waco City Council. My recommendation for her comes after significant deliberation with my executive staff. And the recommendation is based on the facts that she is the most qualified person for this job. She is the best fit for Waco. And she has been building to this moment for her entire 28-year career. It is my honor as city manager to put her name forward, Dr. Cheryl Victorian, to be our next police chief. Council, she's joined the Zoom meeting, and I'd invite any comments or questions for Cheryl or myself at this time.
This is Holmes. As the old guy, I'll start first, I guess. First of all, yeah, congratulations, Chief Victorian. First of all, though, before I get started on this, I want to thank, as Bradley said, Chief Holt. I'm sitting in his office right now, so I got to be nice to him. I'm using his stuff here. But Chief Holt, yeah, just a great leader for the city and what you've done for the city, and now as assistant city manager, continuing that work. And Chief Ginch, same thing, coming into that role, which is can be tough and transitional, but such a great acting chief and a great guy too. Chief Ginch, great guy. But on to Chief Victorian here. You know, I've tried when y'all narrowed it down to 4, I try to be very objective about how I look at the candidates, and the first thing I always do is look at the resumes. And Dr. Victorian, I guess I don't know if refer to you as doctor or chief or what, but the fact that she has a doctorate and a master's degree in criminal justice, to me, shows a commitment to her craft and to her this commitment to being the best police officer she can be. And then the fact that she rose to the level of assistant chief and division commander, and over 28 years, a commitment to the craft, which I find very admirable and fascinating. Not only that, but the values you show in teamwork, the community policing thing, which I think is very important to this council, and relational policing, the values you showed there in the resume were outstanding. And then what I really loved about it is you've been in the trenches, Chief Victorian. I mean, undercover investigator, gang task force officer. I had to write all this stuff down. It was like I was watching Law and Order or NCIS on TV. But a patrol officer, night shift squad, internal affairs. You've done a lot of things in a very large city, and we're very fortunate and happy that you have made the decision to come to Waco. One of my big goals and commitments to my constituency in District 5 is to have a best-in-class police force. And you certainly fill that role of leading our police force, hopefully for the rest of my time on council anyway, the rest of my time in the city, hopefully. But you definitely have my support and look forward to working with you as our chief. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Dr. Victorian, it's a pleasure to meet you via Zoom, first and foremost. Thank you for considering making Waco your home. We are very excited about you coming into our city. I've heard nothing but great things about you, not only from our own city staff, but people that have known you in the Houston area. And so I'm very excited that you are joining us. I know we have a great police department, thanks to the leadership of Chief Holt. And then, of course, right now, Chief Gaines has been stepping in. And so I'm very appreciative for their leadership, but I'm also excited about the leadership qualities that you will bring. Like Councilmember Holmes, not only am I excited about your experience, but your academic achievements that you have accomplished as well. It shows what type of person you are. And so I'm excited about what you're going to bring to Waco, to our beautiful city, to our wonderful city, whom we all love dearly. And welcome again. And we look forward to having you in our city. So congratulations, and you have my full support as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Anybody else?
Hi, Dr. Victorian.
Hi.
First of all, welcome home.
Thank you.
We are beyond ecstatic to have someone of your caliber, someone of your credential, someone of your dedication and commitment to service clearly lead our police force. We have had, as my fellow council members have mentioned, some fantastic chiefs. And we are incredibly appreciative of Chief Gaines for pinch hitting as he does so well in the interim chief role. But as City Manager Ford mentioned, your commitment to innovation and ability to have already walked so many of the pathways and departments within PD, it was incredibly clear and galvanizing for the direction that we want to go, and we want to see our city advance with policing. You know, we've spent the past year talking about community policing. We've spent the past year talking about advancement from young people, even in and through the police force, and knowing that that's a commitment of yours also. You know, it gives me a sense of confidence and excitement about where we're going to go. This month, as we honor Black History Month, I put a post up a couple of weeks ago about Alice Pollard, who was the first African-American woman to serve in Waco PD. she passed away last year, but she was an amazing servant of this community. And I know that she is swelling with pride right now, that you will now serve as, number one, our police chief, period. You know, that you're an African-American woman is just even more. And I know that of the African-American women who serve on the police force are welcoming you. We have, you know, I believe the highest ranking officer we had was Sergeant Sherry Kirk Swinson, who I've known for a very long, all my life. And I know that the shoulders that we stand on are big, but there are no other words that I can say that show how excited we are, how committed we are to your growth and development in the city. And you clearly have my support. And every council member has mentioned all the calls that we got about how wonderful you were from Houstonians. I lived in Houston for 14 years and made a lot of connections. I got lots of calls. I don't even know if your application was cold yet. I mean, in the box, good. And they were like, hey, Dr. Sheriff Torin is coming in and we want you to take a good look at her. And we're so glad that we did. And we welcome you to the city of Waco.
Thank you so much, Councilman.
I was texting our deputy city manager and making a bet as to whether or not I'll be able to do this without tears. I think just listening to Councilwoman Bearfield, it's just really moving. You are exactly the leader for this moment, and we are so honored that you chose Waco. I got to listen in on part of your community interview. I'm a big feeler, social worker, but I got to listen in on one of your community stakeholder interviews, and you were so nuanced and you spoke to things with so much complexity and sincerity, and with such deep commitment to our neighbors, and looking at how do you connect with every member of our law enforcement, and how do you know their names, and how do you know our neighborhood associations, and how do you connect with our nonprofits and churches. And I just left thinking I couldn't have dreamed up a more perfect chief to lead us forward if I tried. And like my colleagues have said, I shared posts on social media once City Manager Ford released his recommendation, and I have heard from truly hundreds of Wacoans that are thrilled to have you. There's just such a spirit of hospitality that is awaiting you in the city, and we cannot wait to get under you and know that you have such a deep breadth of support from law enforcement and churches and nonprofits and government that are really excited to welcome you to Waco. So we're honored. You clearly have my support as well. Really excited about this incredibly historic day, and for it to take place in the middle of Black History Month is just poetic justice.
I also want to fellow council members warm welcome, and also deep respect for the work of Chief Holt and continued by Chief Gensch in the interim. Thanks to both of those gentlemen for all they've done for our city. I want to, Chief Victorian, my name is Josh Borderud, and I'm on City Council as well. I represent District 3, and I hate to put you on the spot because I share in my colleagues' joy in you coming and serving as our chief here. I also celebrate the historic nature of your nomination and hopefully your successful vote here in a few minutes. But I pride myself on knowing a very small amount of about criminal justice as a former 3-year rural prosecutor in Milam County, Texas. And I'm involved in some of our local mental health efforts. And so I just wondered if you had a moment to share just about 2 subjects that are near and dear to my heart. One is our community has been engaging with Prosper Waco's behavioral leadership team with a real concerted effort for mental health diversion out of the criminal justice adjudication process for those who need substance abuse treatment and they need behavioral health treatment. I'm wondering if you could speak to some of your experience with that. We've got a few courts that have recently come online, both our Veterans Treatment Court and our Mental Health Treatment Court in McLennan County, as well as we're also a county of about 250,000, which is probably just the size of one precinct in Harris County. But we've got we've got a number of incorporated cities with their own police departments. And for example, a large portion of my district is in between two suburban communities that are incorporated cities, Hewitt and Woodway. And so interdepartmental working together is important. And I was wondering if you could touch on kind of your experience with dealing with those with mental health needs and also working with interagency efforts. Thank you so much. I want to give you a welcome, a hearty Waco welcome, and enjoy working with you in the future.
Thank you so much. And let me just start by saying thank you to the Honorable Mayor and the Honorable City Council members and City Manager Ford and his team. It is just an awesome feeling to be here. The phone calls, the emails, the messages that I've been getting from total strangers have put my family at ease. They were like, we were worried, but we're not worried anymore because of everything that, all the calls and emails that I've been getting. So thank you very much for even selecting me as one of the finalists to be recommended. So thank you. So answer your question, sir. We have a mental health diversion program here in Houston. We found that the majority of our mental health consumers commit, a lot of crime, but they're low-level offenses, and we find that we're putting them in jail and arresting our way out of it. It's just not the answer. So we've worked with the district attorney's office to develop a mental health diversion plan to make sure that we have to take a holistic approach. So we need to get everybody around the table, the mental health professionals, as well as I think it's important that we include family members of individuals with mental health issues as well, so that they'll know what our responses will be, and so that we'll know, the finite information that we need about some mental health consumers. We also have a program where we have a counselor on board with a police officer. So police officers are behavioral specialists in our own way, but we're not certified behavioral specialists with the training and the schooling. So partnering or having units that are available with a mental health counselor and a police officer on board responding to some of our calls for service will probably reduce the number of calls for service that we have as it relates to the mental health population. But I think that it's really, really important that we get everyone around the table, that we come up with a plan, because it's no secret that a lot of our officer-involved shootings are with people with mental health, because we don't really know how to address it. And if we go to the only tool on our tool belt as a gun, it's going to always make us shine negatively in the public. So we have to come up with ways in order to best address our mental health population. And one of those is to take a holistic approach and partnering with our behavioral specialists and creating diversion programs and having a response unit that involves a counselor and a police officer, making sure our officers, though, because we're not going to be able to avoid having to respond to these calls. So we also need to make sure that our officers are thoroughly equipped to respond to crisis intervention calls, and until that backup get there, until that counselor get there, until that resource gets there. I am interested in sitting around the table and figuring out what the needs of Waco are as it relates to mental health issues and our challenges in responding to calls. So I'm on board with that. As it relates to law enforcement partners, having other agencies around us is a force multiplier. We need to better communicate. We need to work together and do tabletop exercises. We need to share information. We need to use each other's resources. It's just nothing but a win-win, if you ask me. And I've had experiences working with different law enforcement agencies and our different partners across the city of Houston in order to get things done, whether it's a crisis or whether it's a big event that's happening in the city of Houston. So I'm looking forward to meeting our Central Texas police law enforcement partners and having them on speed dial in the top 15 or however many agencies there are, to learn from them and then to partner with them to make sure that the city of Waco and the surrounding areas are safe.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Did everybody go? Is everyone? All right. Well, I guess that comes to me. Dr. Victorian, I just want to echo Councilmember Bearfield and say welcome home. Before that, I do want to say, or thank you to Interim Chief Gench. Thank you to Chief Holt. Dr. Victorian, you're inheriting a stable police force. And I think that is something that we all probably take for granted here in our community, but it is a good thing that we have had good leadership in the years previous. And I'm excited for this moment because we've had these good leaders that have allowed you to get this great police force. And I know that you are going to do such a great job in the helm. Our goal, or at least my goal, has been for our city manager to find a police chief who can ensure that Waco will be a safe community, and a police chief who can build trust with both community members and our Waco police officers. And I know that you are going to be that person. I know that you are that person. I want to commend Bradley Ford for his approach to this hire. This is his decision to make ultimately with our confirmation, but he assembled a panel to ensure that this important decision, which is ultimately made by him, but that it was made thoughtfully with the input of members of our community. And I want to note that community members, as well as our own Waco Police Officer Association representatives serving on that panel, and city staff agreed that you are the perfect candidate for this role and the best candidate that applied to serve our community in this moment. Your references, your credentials, your resume are sterling. And I'm convinced that Waco is going to be a safer community. I'm convinced that our officers are going to thrive under your leadership. And I'm convinced that there will be trust built between you and your department and our community with the expertise that you're bringing into this office. So with that, we welcome you. And I just want to open the floor to you, Dr. Victorian, if you'd like to have any remarks, if there's any remarks that you'd like to give, we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Meek. And again, I am just absolutely honored, just thrilled to just be in this position. I think that my entire career, I was being prepared for something, and now we know exactly what it is. I'll tell you the truth. If I had applied, well, I didn't even know about the position back in February when you guys first, announced it. But I just think God's timing is so perfect, and that someone called me. I still didn't know the position was open. Someone actually called me about the position, and I said that I was going to start looking after I had 3 years as an assistant chief, and I was flattered about the phone call, and I was like, man, do I really want to relocate? And the minute I went and looked at that brochure that City Manager Ford and his team and the community members put together, every bullet just, I got chills, because I was like, that's me, So again, I prayed about it. I talked to my family about it, and I was at peace when I submitted that application. And the whole process has just been I can't say stress-free, but it's just been uneventful. It's just like been a natural. And even from meeting and having lunch with the city managers for my final interview, I felt like I was sitting there talking to family. I almost felt bad about, like I wasn't a stranger. So I look forward to serving in the city of Waco, meeting the community, working to see what your needs are as a city and as a leadership team in the city, and then getting with my officers and getting out in the community and having fun. And I thank Chief Holt and I thank Chief Gench, because that foundation is going to allow us the opportunity, the freedom that I need to go out into the community and have an influence in the community and with the officers, as opposed to trying to look internally and figure out what's going on. It's a solid police department. I did my research, and I'm excited about that. And I'm excited to be able to just go out into the community, start meeting people, start recruiting, and just coming to Waco. I'm just looking forward to it.
Well, we welcome you home, and glad that you are joining us, and what a blessing. So thank you so much. And with that, we'll turn it back over to you, Bradley.
Thank you, Mayor. Goodness, it's hard to transition off an item like that, but I'll attempt to in introducing our next work session, which is a discussion of our planning public hearing agenda items. It's work session 2021-091. As I mentioned earlier, City Attorney Ritchie is stepping in here to cover those public hearing items, and I'll turn the floor over to her.
Bradley, before we get onto that, this is Holmes. On the resolutions, I don't want to go into deep discussion on any of these, but I just want to point out two other ones that I think are worthwhile talking about, just mentioning. One of them is 2021-107, the 200 million investment of Amazon and 1,000 jobs that we're bringing in. And I think it's worthwhile mentioning that, even though I think everybody's seen that plant go up out there on the 6 Loop 340. Just the excitement that I feel in bringing that economic development element to the city, and that number of jobs I think is worth mentioning. The second one I just wanted to mention right quick, Resolution 2021-115 on the McLennan County Emergency Rental Assistance Program. The fact that the county got 7.7 million to put into emergency rental assistance, and asking the city to administer that program. And I just want to do a shout out to Galen and really Deidre as well, by demonstrating last summer when we had the emergency small business emergency relief fund, demonstrating that just ability to administer that kind of a program and have that pivot into this capacity and this ability. I'm just impressed that the county asked the city to do this, and the fact that I've got such high confidence that the city, led by Galen in this assistant city manager Price, I should say. I'm happy that the county and the city are working together on this, and I'm excited that what that kind of means on other kind of programs we can administer in this kind of technical servicing. I just wanted to comment on those two. I'm done. Thanks.
Councilmember Holmes, thanks for welcome back, particularly on the interlocal agreement with McLennan County. Want to give, I think you're hitting the right people here on giving credit, but I want to add one person, if that's all right. And that's our interim director of community services, Rainisha Hudnall, who is really taken on much of that in conjunction with members of our legal team. They've really set up a process that I think is going to work well to serve, hopefully, obviously hundreds of people in McLennan County and serve them right at the right time. So thank you, Councilmember Holmes.
City Manager Ford, I do have a couple of questions pertaining to that specific resolution 115. Because it is government funding, I understand that there's some certain criteria that we have to meet, and I'm very grateful for the partnership that we have with the county. But I would like to know, either now or as a follow-up as an informal report, the requirements that people would need to apply for this type of assistance. Would it be, is a Social Security required, or is an I-10 sufficient? Do our citizens need to be American citizens, or residents is okay? And so I just wanted to try to, as the city has done a great job of making sure that we do this with equity and with honor. And so just want to see how we can follow up on those questions of what the requirements will be from our constituents as to how they apply for this type of assistance.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm going to ask Interim Assistant City Manager Galen Price to step in here for a moment. And Galen, if you don't have a complete answer and want to take some time between the work session and business session to answer this question, please do. But if you know it now, please share.
Right now, we're working with the county to establish that based on their funding source. So we've asked that question and we're waiting a response from them in regards to that. So as soon as we have that response, we'll provide that to the council.
Thank you, Mr. Price, and I appreciate that feedback. I would like to take this opportunity to once again, I've said this before and I would like to say it again, just we do have some people in our community that are here legally, but aren't American citizens per se, still work and still do everything else that possibly an American citizen does, but would like to take the opportunity to see how we can help our community members that maybe aren't citizens, but that may have legal status here, whether it's through residency or I-10, and see if we can include them in this process as well. I just think it's very important there. The pandemic does not know gender or ethnicity or race or where you come from. It just has impacted all of us. And a community that is dominantly Spanish speaking or English as their second language has been even more impacted by the pandemic. And so I would ask that we could do what we can on our end. Now, granted, I know it's government funding, but what we can on our end to make sure that we include as many people as possible in this process. So thank you so much for that, sir.
Yes, sir, we definitely will.
Just want to quickly echo, I completely agree with what Mayor Pro Tem said, and so many of our residents haven't been able to access some of the utility and housing programs that we have had available because of federal eligibility requirements. So any way where we can widen the eligibility possibilities, that would be awesome. And just also want to affirm the fact that this is such a big win today when the temperatures are dangerously low. Residents being able to have access to resources that pay for things like utilities and rent and keep people in their homes and off of the street just cannot be overstated. So this is a huge, huge, huge win. Thanks, Galen, to your leadership, and to Rainisha, who has just done a phenomenal job in that interim role, and to city manager's office. This is something that we can clearly show to our residents that we recognize housing is such a high priority, in a way that we have partnered with other governmental entities to make this available to our residents.
All right, thank you, council members, and sorry for causing us to back up there for a moment. That was worthy of that discussion. With that in mind, Jennifer, if you're ready for work session 2021-091, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you, Mayor and Council. I want to set the appropriate expectation, which is this will not be as good as if Clint did it. So I hope you'll give me grace in this moment. So tonight we have 8 public hearings. The first is Public Hearing 2021-096. It's a request for a special permit for a short-term rental type 2 in an R1B district. It's at 4220 Watt Street. And if you'll keep going, Esmeralda. Is that if you'll forward? Oh, yeah. So this is the location of this existing 2-bedroom house. Keep going. Keep going. And keep going, Esmeralda. And you can see the outside of the house here. Plan Commission, staff recommended approval. Plan Commission recommended approval by an 8-0 vote. We did receive 2 return cards on this, only one of which had concerns, and there was no opposition. Our next item is public hearing.
Jennifer, this is Hector. May I ask a question about that?
Sure.
Public hearing, please? I noticed that in our agenda packet with the other STRs and STRs in the past, staff has included a map of maybe STRs that are in close proximity, and I did not see one in this public hearing. Is it because there is not another STR that's close by or within 500 feet of this one?
I would assume so. I will find out at the break, because there is another item where those a map with those circles are shown. But I will find out at the break and let you know. Okay.
And then the other question I had is, I know we've talked about this in the past, but with other STRs, we've gotten pictures of, well, we've received pictures, I should say, of the STR, how it looks on the outside and inside. And in the past, some concerns have been brought up by council as to how maybe some STRs look on the outside or inside. And so just one, not more of a question, but more of a comment, making sure that we're following up that the STRs are giving a great representation of our community and our city, and making sure that they're being kept up with, not only on the outside, but on the inside as well. And so I appreciate the pictures coming through. So thank you so much.
Thank you, council member. We appreciate that. And we will make sure that's done. The next item is 2021-097. This is a request for a special permit for a short-term rental 2 in an R1B district for 1901 Algonquin. This is a newly, if you'll keep going, Esmeralda, this is the location. And so, Mayor Pro Tem, you'll see that map was included with the circles here, and this is, Esmeralda, yeah. This is just outside the distance requirement, if you'll keep going. And this is the drawing of the map of the location. So this is a newly constructed 3-bedroom home. The applicant has the property under contract. Keep going. It was recommended for approval by staff and was recommended by the Plan Commission meeting at a vote of 8-0. We did not receive any comments in opposition to this item. The next item is 2021-098. It's a request for a special permit, again, for a short-term rental 2 in an R1B district for 2217 North 44th Street. We'll go forward. Go on. This is an existing newly renovated 4-bedroom home. Plan Commission and staff recommended approval. The Plan Commission vote again was 8-0. We did not receive any comments in opposition on this item.
Is this, Jennifer, is this public hearing 98? Is this not the one where a person sent an email saying that they had already experienced some previous encounters or issues with this property, of the street being full and house parties? And I just want to make sure that we've addressed that with the homeowner before this is approved.
So I see, yeah, you're right. There was one return card with concerns, but no objection. And so,
well, it was sent in a separate email, I think.
yeah.
You're absolutely correct, Councilmember Barefoot. It was in a separate email.
And my question, I guess, was who is the listed local property manager? Because if it was some concerns with traffic and noise and all that, and because I understand the property owner is out of town, who, is a property manager listed, and do they, were the responses, addressed? And if so, I just wanted a little bit more information on it myself.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think that, and anyone correct me if I'm wrong, please, but I think they did try to contact the property manager, but the incidents have happened after hours. And so, as my understanding is that their issues have not been addressed. So that's why I brought it up also, just to want to make sure that we have talked with the owner, the property manager, about some of the complaints that are coming in from the neighbors.
I was confused about that as well. Is this a new permit? I didn't understand how there were complaints. Yeah, is this a reapplication or is this a new permit? Because if this isn't a reapplication, if this isn't a renewal, how is it that these things were already taking place?
And Jennifer, while you're looking for that answer, I do want to say that, as Jennifer mentioned, Clint, because of technical problems, has not been able to jump in, and Jennifer's winging it. And for any of these public hearings that we have, if there are unresolved questions that council has, or if there are folks that we think want to comment, and we have any reason to believe that an opponent is not able to do so because of the weather, I'm personally, I don't think we're required to do this by any means, but we can always pull those. So Jennifer, if you don't have the answers to this, I just want to say that I know that you're winging it and not winging it, but you are subbing in for Clint right now, and you're doing an excellent job doing that. And if you don't have any of these answers, I would submit to the council that we we can always pull one of these items if we need to.
And our apologies, City Manager Ritchie. We just wanted to get the concerns on record. So it's not like we expect you to pull Clint's rabbits out of Clint's hats. But,
Correct.
you know, so I hope you don't think that.
Oh,
No, I appreciate it. I don't know the answers to those questions, and you're correct. I'm not reading it from the materials. So I will either get those answers at the break or council can make a determination about whether they want to proceed with the item tonight.
perfect.
So item 2021-99 is a request for a special permit for a bed and breakfast homestay establishment in an R1B district for 100 Creek Ridge Drive. As a reminder, a bed and breakfast homestay is an owner-occupied residential property. You go to the next slide. Where short-term lodging is provided that contains no more than 5 guest rooms. Breakfast can be provided, but is not required. And this, if we go to the next slide, this is the location out on off of Steinbeck Bend Road. This is the aerial of the property. So this is an existing 4-bedroom house. The owner will be living there and proposes to operate 3 of the 4 bedrooms as a bed and breakfast. There's enough room to park at least 5 vehicles. This item was recommended, thank you. Recommended for approval by staff and recommended by Plan Commission by a vote of 8-0. We did receive 1 comment in opposition to this item. The next item is 2021-100. It's a request for a special permit for an automobile car washing establishment in the C2 district for the property at 708 North 9th Street. This property is located at the corner of 9th and Waco Drive. This is the layout. This is what it will look like. There are several commercial uses on Waco Drive. You can see the property here. And you can see there's a gas station nearby. This is a picture of Waco Drive. There was a concern at the Plan Commission and among one of the people who commented about the traffic that would be caused by this use. So the Plan Commission delayed this so the traffic analysis could be done, and that traffic analysis is in your packet. And the traffic analysis found the spill out on the city streets was unlikely, even during the busiest time of day, to cause any kind of cars lining up on city streets. This is recommended for approval by staff and was recommended by the Plan Commission by a vote of 8-0. We did receive 1 comment in opposition. 2 were returned, 1 in favor, 1 in opposition, and an email from the president of the Brook Oaks Neighborhood Association that was in favor of this item.
Hey, Jennifer, quick question on this one.
Sure.
Seeing some of the new car washes that have gone in throughout the city on New Road and on Valley Mills, I've noticed that there are often cars parked in the middle of busy streets wanting to get into these car washes. Do we know if there were, and this again could be a Clint question that we can come back to at a later point, but do we know if there were traffic analyses conducted then that thought that there wasn't going to be traffic? My fear is often when I'm driving on New Road or Valley Mills and I see those new car washes, I'm seeing like 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 cars parked on busy roads waiting to get in. And I would hate to see that happen here as well.
Yeah, Councilmember Palmer, I don't know if the traffic engineer looked at the other locations, but certainly they looked at this location. And it was a third-party engineer, and our city engineer reviewed and concurred in the findings of the traffic engineer. Again, Plan Commission continued the case to allow time for this study, and they were satisfied by the finding. But certainly we could ask the question about whether or not they looked at the other 2 locations.
Okay, thank you.
The next item is public hearing 101. This is a request for approval of final PUD plan. This property is located at the corner of, located at Panther Way between Ritchie Road and Farm Miller Road.
I'm going to go to you, so stop.
This item is recommended for approval by staff and was recommended by Plan Commission at its January 26th meeting by a vote of 8-0. We did receive one comment in opposition to approval of this plan. The next item, council, is item 102. It's a request for an abandonment of a 0.027 acre portion of right-of-way along Highway 84. It's believed to be the remainder of Barnard Avenue. The applicant wants it for future development. We'll keep flipping, that's wrong. And you'll see it's a very small sliver of land. This is the site where it is, and you can see that this is an old picture showing, I guess, a foundation at the new development at St. Albans Church. Keep going. Plan Commission and staff have recommended approval. Plan Commission recommended approval by an 8-0 vote. A general utility easement will be retained if y'all grant this abandonment. We did not receive any return comments to the card sent on this item. The next item, the last item, is 103. This is a request to rezone the property located at 9114 Royal Lane from C3 to R3C. You can see the location of this property. It's an existing building, but rezoning it. The applicant wants to develop this property. The item is recommended for approval by staff and was recommended by Plan Commission by a vote of 8-0. We did receive one email in opposition to this item. And with that, we'll be glad to take any other questions council may have.
Jennifer, on the PUD, was that comment, the one comment that received an opposition, was that in the materials, do you know?
Let me look, Councilmember Bordereau.
Jennifer, I believe it is on packet on page 243 of the packet.
Thank you.
I see it. Thank you so much.
And a question on public hearing 102. The piece of land, St. Albans is asking for us to abandon it to them, but have we done anything with it, or has it just been vacant for years and years and years?
We think it's a remnant of a street that maybe wasn't properly abandoned. And so, as you can see, it's a triangular little sliver of land. We will retain general utility easements there, for any utilities that are there, or if we need any utilities to be there in the future. So they are aware of that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Mayor Pro Tem, I live literally 2 blocks from there, and you would not know that that was formerly a road if you walked by it.
Well, I was going to say, I've driven by there numerous times. I didn't even realize that was City of Waco property. So
yeah.
All right. If there's no further questions on Jennifer's presentation, Jennifer, thank you so much for stepping into that. We very much appreciate you in all that you do, but certainly even more today. With that, I'd like to call work session 2021-094, which is a discussion of requests for resolutions of support for proposed projects applying for inclusion in the low-income housing tax credit program administered by the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. And before I turn the presentation over to Ms. Hudnall, I did want to make one comment. And as the council probably remembers, we had a presentation last week at the Budget and Audit Committee meeting, during which I made a recommendation that we not move forward on the second requested resolution. Or you'll recall that's the one that states that a particular project contributes more to the city's revitalization efforts. After the meeting, I did receive additional feedback and clarification that removed the concerns that I had expressed And so we've posted the second resolution type on the agenda today for your deliberation. I want to thank Mike Ash he's the developer on Page Estates, for his diligent work in that. And also want the council to be aware that we have directly spoken to the Waco Housing Authority to independently verify that their organization's preference is towards senior housing units. All that being said, I'm going to invite Rainisha Hudnall, our Interim Director of Community Service, to provide the council with a presentation, and she can clean up any further inaccuracies that I might have stumbled across. So Rainisha, you've got the floor.
Good afternoon. Can you see my my presentation? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and Council. Today I will be discussing the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program and applications submitted for resolution. Highlighted in this presentation is the Waco LIHTC Policy Overview, Project Request for Support to Concerted Revitalization Plan Resolution, recommendations moving forward and next steps, and any questions. The criteria for the resolution of support must include the following: affordable units, market rate units, units set aside for housing authority, construction architecturally compatible with existing neighborhoods, community involvement with a minimum of 2 public meetings, and the property must be a taxable real estate. Staff received 3 requests for support of resolution. The first request of support was JES Development Company, Inc. for Page Estates. This development will be located at 826 South 11th Street with 64 units, total units, and it's a senior development unit with 10 market rate units. The second request we received is DMA Companies for 5th Street Lofts. This will be located at 705 through 721 South 5th Street. The development is proposing the construction of 100 units specifically for families, and there will be 80 affordable units and 20 market rate units. The third request for support is Solutions for Veterans for Freedom's Path at Waco. This development will be located at 4800 Memorial Drive. The development is proposing the construction of adaptive reuse of 34 units, 26 units, studio units, and 8 new constructed units, specifically for veterans with an estimated project amount of $5.6 million. This property will not have residents drawn from the general public. Our residents will be veterans of some form of special needs. In addition to the resolution of support, 2 developers did request an additional resolution, Concerted Revitalization Plan Resolution. This resolution identifies a development that contributes more than any other competitive 9% credit development to the city of Waco concerted revitalization efforts. And those 2 developers were JES Development Corporation and DMA Companies. So today's recommendation from staff is for resolution of support for each project is to increase the number of affordable housing units for inside Waco, provides additional available units for seniors, veterans, and families, development of 3 vacant parcels of land, and the rehabilitation of 3 vacant structures, identify 1 or 2 developers to receive the concerted revitalization plan, and then also weigh the LIHTC policy requirements for Freedom's Path at Waco for the affordable units to market rate units, and then for taxable real estate for Freedom Path Waco. So our next steps would be to adopt a resolution of support, await notice for the final award for TDHCA. Projects will go through the city's development process, enter into a development agreement for fee waivers, and then construction begins in 2022. Any questions?
Yes, Rainisha, this is Josh Borderud. I just wanted to briefly ask, Freedom's Path did not request that additional resolution of support in terms of which contributes more. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. And one of the things that's being requested that we waive is whether it's on taxable land. And in their case, that's because it's located at the VA, which is tax exempt. Is that correct?
Correct. They have a long-term lease of 75 years. So okay. It could become taxable one day, but we're not sure at this moment.
Okay. And so just to summarize, the city's recommendation is a letter of support for all three, and that the council decide between Page Estates and the Fifth Street lofts, which to give kind of the contributing more designation to. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, that was a little convoluted. All right, thank you.
Okay. Ranisha, could you speak to how many available affordable housing units we have for seniors currently?
City Manager Price, can you assist me with that?
I don't know the exact number right offhand, but I do know that we did have, in the last couple of years, we've actually had a tax credit deal come online that's going to be developed out on Highway 6. There would be about 100 units of additional senior housing. But we can look at that and then we'll get that information back to you.
Okay, that would be great. I'd be curious to know with that, like the percentage of our residents that are maybe over 65, and then what our availability of affordable senior housing is.
Well, senior housing is anything considered by HUD, anything considered 55 or over. So
55 it is.
Yeah, well, the information we'll provide will be based on the fact of ages 55 or over.
Councilmember Palmer, and I don't know if this helps with your question as well, but I also have spoken with Millette from Waco Housing Authority, and she has confirmed that her longest wait list for housing is for seniors that are 50 and above that are looking for a 1 to 2 bedroom place of stay. So I know that she has expressed that there is a huge need for senior housing in our community right now. And I don't want to speak for her, and Galen, you can stop me, but I think she is also in favor of the project on South 11th, Page Estates. And it would not affect her future funding as well. You know, I know we're going through the process of, or they're going through the process of updating all the housing developments that we have in South Terrace and Stella Maxey and Kate Ross, and putting senior development across the street on 11th Street would not impose or cause any problems for the update and maintenance of Kate Ross. Galen, did I say that correctly?
Yes, sir, you did. We've had additional conversations after budget and audit, and they were able to provide us with that information in conjunction with Mr. Ash. So,
and I also want to say, you know, I want to thank Mr. Ash for all of his work, all of his due diligence and making sure that he's speaking with the neighborhood. I know he's had numerous meetings with the Downtown Neighborhood Association. I know he's contacted me quite a few times. He's copied me on emails that he has sent to city staff. I know Ranisha and Galen have been the recipients of a lot of those emails as well. And so I appreciate his due diligence. One question that I have is, when would we make the decision of who, the second resolution that they're both asking for, when would we make the decision of who gets it? Would it be at the work session?
It would be at the business session.
Business session. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. You're absolutely correct. Business session?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
For me, I think what's interesting, to just echo what Mayor Pro Tem Sabito said, is that learning Millette Hopping's recommendation for this, and her speaking to her need for senior housing, in addition to Galen and Bradley and their team coming back, really is what made me want to give this a second look. I think that that team's understanding of the need for senior housing, particularly Millette and her line of work, I found compelling if we're distinguishing between the two different projects at hand. So I do appreciate all of the other things that the city staff worked on this project and all the projects that it submitted to really make sure that are we making the right call here moving forward. And do look forward to our housing study that we're doing that we've talked about, and know that there's going to be a lot of good information to advise us on how we move forward, and look forward to continuing to make sure that we have good housing policies in our community, but at the same time are striking that right balance of making sure that we're well planned and thought out, but also nimble if we need to be in the right moment, and I know that we're working towards that. So certainly do appreciate the efforts of staff here.
This is Holmes. Mayor, I'm sorry to go after you. I should have jumped in front of you on that. But I just wanted to thank Director Hudnall for the presentation. Again, you guys have done some great work on where this was, the whole comparative analysis process 5 years ago, as I said in budget and audit last week. We were just kind of trying to figure out which one's the best. So, okay, use it. But this, I love this comparative analysis. We're thoughtfully having dialogue about each project, and we're picking ones that fit the city the best. And I do appreciate also, Bradley, your concept of pivoting out of your previous position there, City Manager Ford, because and I think I've told a couple of you in my investment banking days, when we talked about money and capital funding, it was like when you can get it, you don't need it, but when you need it, you can't get it. So this is kind of a juncture to me of where maybe we need to be more thoughtful or holistic study on housing, but we have somebody who's there right now, willing to fill a genuine need of the city. So I do like the fact that we are kind of being thoughtful about picking one out. And I guess that's the next thing I want to clarify. And I think Josh maybe already teased this out, and Hector. But the 4800 Memorial, I think Freedom's Path, I think I am very highly supportive of that, and I want to make sure that one goes in. And I don't think there's anything else we need to do outside of what we have in the resolution on that one. I just want to confirm that that's correct. And part two of my question is, picking really comes down to either giving both Page Estates and the let me see, what's the other one called, the Fifth Street Lofts, either just giving both of them kind of a green light, or actually kind of saying we prefer, or this one fits us better right now than the other one. I think that's what we're kind of charged with doing tonight. And I just want to, if that's the case, two things. One of them is just to express my support for the Page Estates. The senior development one seems to fit what we're trying to do. It's more complementary to what we have going on right now there in that neighborhood. And then the last question is, procedurally, is that in the resolutions, and maybe this is a question for City Attorney Ritchie, is that in Resolution 2021-114, is that where we will choose one, or we have the opportunity to choose one or the other? Is that right?
Yes, I believe so. Let me make sure that number's correct.
Yeah. And is there anything, and then as you're answering that question, is there anything we need to do on 8, 9, and 10? I guess 9 and 10 are just supporting both of them, and 11, or number 11, is just saying we're going to choose one or the other as a preference.
Yes, the three resolutions before then are resolutions in support of each of those, including the one on the veterans property. And then item resolution 2021-114 is the one where you would choose between Page Estates project and the Fifth Street Lofts property, about which of those two housing projects contributes more than any other to the city's concerted revitalization efforts.
Okay. Thank you, Jennifer. That's all I have.
From what I'm hearing from my colleagues on council, and you know, with my own personal investment in wanting to make sure the Freedom's Path is brought here to Waco, my understanding is our resolution of support is what they need, and that's what we're going to deliver. In terms of which of those two remaining will contribute, my inclination is to go with Page Estates as well, just given the needs of our senior community stated by staff.
in reflection and looking on it, one of the things, Mayor Pro Tem Sabito, that I did, you answered the question, I believe it was Councilmember Palmer, about the number of senior facilities that we have here in the city. And I have heard Millette say several times that that wait list is the deepest. As we were analyzing what the impact would be for South Terrace in their renovations, those were the largest concerns, because there are people who have lived there for 40 plus years. And making sure that we have somewhere for our seniors to go that is well done, safe, affordable, being key, is priority for us. And to that extent, I will offer up my support to Page Estates, because I believe that prioritizing our elders and our senior community is important to me. I believe it's important to this council to ensure that we offer well-crafted, affordable housing for our senior community.
All right, Mayor. That sounds like that concludes this work session. If there's no further comments or questions, and that concludes City Manager's portion of the agenda.
I failed earlier to ask if there are any items council would like to remove from the consent agenda. If not, then the consent agenda will include resolutions 221-104 through, 2021-104 through 2021-120. We will.
Mayor?
Yes.
We do have some individuals who want to speak during some of the resolutions. Do you want those numbers now for?
Yeah, that would be great, please. Okay. Sorry about that, Esmeralda.
No, that's okay. We're rolling with it. We have resolution 104, resolutions 112 and 114 will be pulled. And I think the rest are public hearings.
Okay. So that's a consent agenda. Will include resolutions 2021-104 through 2021-120, with the exceptions of resolutions 2021-104, 112, and 114. Are there any future agenda items?
Mayor Meek, I do have one. I know that we are still dealing with the pandemic here in our city, not only our city, but our state and all across the world. But I would like to schedule a follow-up agenda item as to what are our plans for Brazos Nights. I know that many of our citizens look forward to Brazos Nights, and due to the pandemic, it was canceled in 2020. And so just as with Waco Wonderland, I know many of our constituency in our city looks forward to it. So just want to know what our plan will be for Brazos Nights coming up this year.
Thank you, Council Member. Any other requests for future agenda items? Hearing none, we will now recess the work session and reconvene regular session for executive session as read into the record by the City Secretary at 4:36 p.m.
Yes, Mayor and Council. Notice is hereby given that the City Council will go into executive session in accordance with the following provisions. 1, real property, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.072. 2, economic development, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.087. And 3, personnel, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.074. A, City Manager Bradley Ford. B, City Secretary Esmeralda Hudson. C, City Attorney Jennifer Ritchie. And D, Municipal Court Judge Christopher Taylor. We're now in executive session at 4:37 p.m.